when he stopped.
Okay, we will start. My name is Nika. Welcome everyone to the Carlos Bulasan Book Club event. I'm the chair of Carlos Bulasan, and I will now get our president to say a few words, uh, James Castillo, about the Friends of Echo Park Library, of which this is one of its programs. So,
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on another wonderful event showcasing our stories, our talents, writers, artists in our community. Um, we have gone a long way in this country, and it's events like this that really drive us forward and get our community more empowerment. Because without power in our community, there's not a whole lot of things we can do. But when we start sharing our stories and being participants in the American democracy as an experiment, I guess, is what Carlos Wilson is, you know, trying to explore in his book America's in the Heart. And the Carlos Bulasan Book Club is named after him. And so we continue the torch that he started back in the day. And now we have newer writers and artists that have carried on that torch. And thank you again for being here. And we hope you guys continue to support us and follow our events. Thank you.
okay, thank you, James. So I am going to introduce our author today, who will do a presentation of the book that we are hosting. Followed after that, Laurel has I call discussant or commentator who will present her take on the book. And then followed after that, we'll have a conversation between the two of them. And after that's over, we'll open it to everyone, Q&A, so to speak. But after the Q&A, Laurel has copies of the books to sell. So make sure you buy your copy and we have the author here to sign the book. So anyway, Laurel, go ahead and
Excuse me, on
introduce.
that note, I just want to make sure you're donating a copy to the library.
Oh, I did donate it last, but I will donate my heart under water. I haven't donated that.
So Laurel, if you can introduce yourself, give a brief background, and then also maybe briefly introduce, or you can introduce Bianca when she will do her take as a commentator, as a discussant. But otherwise,
Yeah, we'll do it in reverse.
oh, okay, sure. We're pretty forward to slow here.
I wanted to introduce myself also, and then eventually leave to Laurel, if you don't mind. The
Okay,
structure of what we had planned.
sure.
Yeah.
So take it away. Let's start with Bianca. Take the spotlight for everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited to be able to share this book with you. This is like a very meaningful event for us because, this is the Echo Park Branch Library, the home of like the heritage collection, and it means a lot to be able to like have this book shared. My name is Bianca. I grew up in the Philippines and I studied in UP. I was a film major in UP. There you go, UP. I came to the US in 2014 to study film. And so my connection to the US has always been through film as well. And, that is one of my connections to this book. Laurel is one of my best friends here in the US, as well as I'm a fan of their work. This book is so much about love. It's so much about loyalty to, the countries that you grew up in, like the US, the Philippines, love for another person, love for places, and love for cinema, really. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the book, like what the book is about and what has been said about the book since it's been released. First Impulse is a nonfiction love story and mystery. Alexis Tioseco and Nika Bohinc were two young film journalists. They were deeply in love. Alexis was the only child and of his Filipino Canadian family who chose to stay in the Philippines. He wrote an open letter to his girlfriend Nika, asking her to join him in his country because Nika was still living abroad when they fell in love. And so he wanted her to join him in the Philippines, which of course at that time was such a big ask for like someone that we love. And so she did. She left her home of Slovenia and came to the Philippines to live with Alexis. However, in September 2009, four intruders murdered the couple in their home in Quezon City. Alexis was 28, Nika was 29, and the couple's tragedy rippled across the Philippines and the world, leaving devastation and very few answers in its wake. A year later, a young Filipino American author, Laurel Fantauzzo, who we have here, felt haunted by the unsolved case, and so she began an investigation of her own. And this is like a conversation I'd love to like talk to Laurel about because Laurel grew up here in California, not very far from Echo Park. And so it'd be nice to like chat about her life before she went back to the Philippines, what she discovered upon her return. She's back here in the US now, but surprisingly, she and her wife are moving back again to the Philippines very soon. There's a lot of like migration from like old homes to new homes to old homes again. A review about the book, Howie Severino in 2018 wrote, through Alexis and Nika and her own encounters with it, Laurel Fantauzzo tells the story of contemporary Philippines. The first impulse is a brutally honest dissection of an infuriatingly flawed society on the verge of disruption. It was written shortly before the rise of the Verde, the murders of thousands, and the applause by millions. When one could still criticize the status quo without being swarmed by the offended, with the zeal of religious fanatics. In unraveling the mystery, Fantauzzo brings the reader into urban poor communities, dynamics of internal migration, the relations between boss and domestic servant in a quasi-modern society. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
And a hard to
yeah.
hear.
Okay, I'll talk louder.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
We used to have a mic.
Yes, also because you're looking down.
Okay, I understood. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So before I introduce the author, I'll talk a little bit about my experience, especially being a filmmaker and a lover of film. What I really loved about the book is I couldn't understand why Laurel, as a writer, had the courage to write about two people who had been murdered. Like, I think that was like such an exciting thought, but also like a very moving thought for me because it's like writing a love letter to people she had never met in person. So I thought that was like a very interesting thing that drew me in, especially these two people who are very in love with Philippine cinema. They didn't grow up in the Philippines, really. I grew up in Manila. I grew up making films in Manila. And when you're in Manila making films, it's very hard. You sometimes shoot for 24 hours. You don't have a lot of resources. There's a lot of things that will bring you down, like corruption will bring you down. A lot of things are expensive. We're paying people off so we can shoot. Like, it's just not the best structure. But these people who didn't even grow up there found a love for it and decided to stay. And that's a big question for me as someone who, grew up in the Philippines, but I'm living here. There's always a question of like, what does home mean to me? Where is home? How do I show my love even if I'm not home? And so those questions I felt like I could relate to in the book. Stories about love, stories about like, what makes you stay in a place? Because they were two people who were international. Even if like Alexis is Filipino, like he still grew up in Canada. He's Canadian and very much uprooted his life because he saw a love for Philippine cinema. Like that was his reason to stay. And so these are all like such big things that Laurel tackles on top of an unsolved murder case. In the Philippines, as we know, there's so many things that if you look for answers, you'll just end up in dead ends. And unfortunately, that
End up in what?
in dead ends.
Oh, dead end.
Dead ends.
Yeah. And so unfortunately, like a lot of things like that still happen. And I'd love to learn, what has happened since Laurel. I will introduce Laurel now. Laurel Fantauzzo is the author of My Heart Underwater, their second book, and The First Impulse. Her essays have appeared in CNN Philippines, the New York Times, The Baffler, and elsewhere. She has been named a Philippine National Book Award finalist, a Pen Fusion Emerging Writers Prize finalist, and the recipient of a Carlos Palanca Memorial Award. She was a Fulbright Journalism Fellow, a Hedgebrook resident, a grantee of the Estrella Lesbian Foundation for Justice, and an arts fellow at the University of Iowa nonfiction writing program. She currently lives with her wife between Los Angeles and Metro Manila. And this is our author.
Thank you so much to Bianca, who's a wonderful filmmaker. If you go to her website, she's very Googleable, Bianca Katlagan, and you'll find her short films and also her photography, which is, yeah, it's a wonderful work of art. So thank you, Bia, for introducing me. And thank you to the Carlos Bulasan the Club for all that you do, you know, for the art, for the community, for the heritage. It's wonderful to be here. This is also our home library. So thank you so much for having me again. I'm going to read a chapter called What Happened. And I just wanted to ask, does anyone need like a visual aid while I read along?
Would you like to read along with the book?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Probably. If you want, yeah. So you can just take a copy of the book, and it's on page 81.
We're gonna bring up puppets.
Not for this one. Not this one.
So in that book, you touch on Alexis. I
Yes, Alexis and Nika book.
think the same Alexis that made a comment about the Genghis Khan film.
Yes.
The whole.
Right, and Metro Manila Film Festival.
Yeah.
Okay.
You met him?
No, we were talking about it with Joshua. Joshua has the prints, film prints.
Okay, so I'll read from the chapter called What Happened, and it's on page 81.
Page 18.
81.
This is Alexis?
It is, yeah. That's Alexis and Nika.
And you do on? Only consider.
Yeah.
Also, this is not.
It's nonfiction, yes.
So this
It's a work of journalism. Yeah,
That's actually, I got attracted when it's like a nonfiction.
right.
It's like- It's a love story. It's a nonfiction.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, does everyone have page 81? Who wants to read? Okay, great. In late August 2011, I had lunch with Susan Kimpo in Quezon City. I knew her by her familial title, Ate Susan. She was in her 50s, my former Filipino language teacher, and kept an occasional eye on my doings in the country. She wore shawls and believed in burning incense and talking to the dead. She told me, between trips to the farmer's market and picking up her children at school, about certain rituals she often held and her personal correspondence with spirits. She always laughed more than I expected her to, and I nodded at her stories and laughed with her, but I never tried very hard to understand. That day, I was having a hard time laughing. Ate Susan noticed. "You're Ara," she said, a few minutes into our meal at a quiet vegetarian restaurant. "There's a heaviness. Today you feel too old for someone only 27. Again." I looked up. "I'm really bothered by the Alexis and Nika case," I said. "Ah," she said. "The film critics. Alexis was Phil Amp. Alexis grew up in Canada. North American, Phil Ampa. Where did you hear about them?" "I saw these news articles. I ran into their friends." Ate Susan paused. "I saw Alexis only once, introducing a film screening at UP Diliman," she said. "I never spoke to him. His aunt, Tina, is my friend. She was very affected. She was the family member who identified them at the house where they were shot. Grabe. Alexis always used to email her about Filipino film screenings. Now she never knows when the films are showing." She shook her head and sighed in sympathy. Kawawa naman. "I went to the house after the killings because Tina asked me if I could sense anything." Ate Susan never asked for disability, her open third eye. But she always said it was natural for her, and that she had to learn to use and control it, so that lost spirits don't trouble her too intensely. When she was a child, her mother was hit by a jeepney in front of her. Ate Susan dreamed the color of the jeepney and its license plate number for weeks before the accident. She saw her mother's spirit for some time after the accident, sitting sadly in the family's bathroom. Ate Susan's brother disappeared in the Marcos dictatorship of the 1970s. During martial law, he was one of thousands of young activists tortured and murdered at random by the military and the police. Ate Susan says she saw the truth of her brother's death in a vision, though his body was never found. It was extremely violent torture after the military had used him as a tracer in bus stations, restaurants, and university events to attract other activists for capture. Her dead brother visits from time to advise her. My own mother had friends who died during the Marcos dictatorship. She hid for a while after newspapers named her an activist, to the fury and fear of her own father. She refused to speak to me about that time and silently disapproved of my current presence in Manila on a Fulbright. My father sent me constant, anxious emails wondering when I'd return to the United States. I always assured him that I was fine, even when I didn't feel fine. So I met with Ate Susan instead to talk about the country and how I was really doing. It's an odd house at Times Street, Ate Susan continued. Not a lot of movement. I saw Alexis and Nika's bedroom, the upstairs. Everything was still there at the time. His office, well, you know how guys are, how they just kind of throw things into a room and leave them there. The other office was neater. I could sense that Alexis had moved on. There was no sign of him at all. But the woman, Nika, she was still there. She hadn't moved on. Her spirit was still in the house. I could feel it. My throat closed. The profound injustice of it suddenly silenced me. Nika Bohinc, an outsider come to this country out of love for her partner, killed violently, then denied even peace, rest. Maybe this was made up. I tried to comfort myself with that. Perhaps Ate Susan was merely fabricating the situation out of her own fascination. But I could not soothe myself. An unsolved murder, a restless spirit near my age here in the Philippines, originally, with someone she loved. It felt too close, too urgent. How do you help someone move on? I asked suddenly. How do you help them? Sometimes they do need help from the living to move on. One, that we're even talking about her now at this lunch. That could mean she needs help. Ate Susan looked down, thinking. I felt something welling up in me, some force of empathy and identification I could not explain. I would want someone to help me, I said suddenly. If it were me, I would want help. Ate Susan looked up. You could do it. You could help Nika. I looked down. I felt my empathy replaced by the sour sensation of being a trespasser. What is this conversation? I thought. What am I doing? I didn't know Nika, I said, retreating. That's better, Ate Susan declared. You can communicate more clearly to her as a stranger, because you're not so affected by personal grief. I didn't understand the logic of this at all, my distance being any kind of advantage for communicating with a stranger who died. I only assumed my distance meant I should stay away. But Ate Susan proceeded to give me specific instructions. If you want to, write to Nika. Tell her you're sorry for what happened to her. Reassure her. Tell her that it's all right for her to move on now. It wasn't the first time I'd heard of ghost and spirit sightings in the Philippines. I visited massacre sites and monuments to the violently killed. I'd been to the World War II scarred island of Corregidor, where visitors claim they've left tape recorders on old battlefields in the middle of the night, waking to playback sounds of otherworldly battles flashing over and over again. Science professors and Filipino Fulbright scholars alike told me about needing to seek guidance on how to close their own third eyes, since they were troubled at night by the spirits of the restless dead, sitting on their beds, wanting to know how to find their way back to life or home or elsewhere. A relative in Quezon City told me she always sees the spirit of her miscarried child when she enters the bathroom at night, looking up at her, beseeching. Filipinos speak of these matters with frank belief. Spirits linger. They are not otherworldly pious beings. They behave like the humans they are, with human frailties and longings. Some are confused. Some are mischievous. Some are angry and mean harm to the living. Some living people can see the spirits. Some people can't. I never knew what to make of any of this. Belief in ghosts seemed like another of the Philippines' coping mechanisms. The country wasn't good at resolving the truth of its own violent acts. Presidential candidates, national heroes, and common citizens alike have been murdered throughout the centuries, with rumors as the killings' only resolutions. Filipinos banded together for comfort, offering each other otherworldly truths in place of the truths their own human world could never seem to reach. So I listened to each ghost story as simply that, a story. Susan Kimpo explained the phenomenon another way. When humans are given a set amount of energy for a life of nearly 100 years, they are unexpectedly killed. At 28, like Alexis Tioseco, or 29, like Nika Bohinc, the force of that remaining 70 years of energy must travel outward somehow. The sensitive living would feel it and do something with it. But when I got home to the small room I rented in Quezon City, I thought, no. I did my best to forget what Ate Susan said. I did not write to Nika. Ultimately, I muttered to myself, you are an outsider to this very sensitive, very horrific, very personal tragedy. So stay outside. I turned off my bedroom light. In my sleep, I met Nika. We're inside an empty house with white walls. She's slender and blonde and taller than me. She's wearing glasses with dark frames. We are standing on the second floor of a two-story house. She shows me the windows, opening her arms and then letting her hands fall decisively to clap at her hips. It's a wide set of windows with metal horizontal bars on them. Alexis is dead, Nika tells me. Her voice is assertive and fast and strangely pragmatic. I can't categorize her accent. I've never heard that accent before, but I'm still alive. I'm avoiding the men. I don't ask her anything. I just listen to her and look at the windows. In my dream, it seems important to simply listen. I follow Nika around the house. She shows me more empty rooms. I can't understand the rest of what she is saying as she leads me, but I can understand that she is angry. She means no harm to anyone. She is engaged in the effort of defending herself. I woke up in my room in Quezon City, and the dark felt like a solid, tangible object ready to smother me. I scrambled for the light switch. Over the next week, I stopped turning my light off at night. Soon my landlady knocked and asked me about the increased electricity bill. I told her I had no idea what happened. After Susan took the details of my dream, it's a spiritual emergency. She texted Alexis's Aunt Tina and arranged to visit the house on Pine Street again, shortly before the 2-year anniversary of the murders on September 1, 2011. The visit would be, for Ate Susan, a fact-checking visit to see if there was something to what Nika had been saying in my dream. Ate Susan visited at the same time as a married couple who claimed to be able to contact spirits. They called themselves, subtly, the Ghostbusters. They offered to clear any lingering spirits out of the house for a small fee of 85,000 pesos, a little over 2,000 US dollars. Ate Susan joined the Ghostbusters as a quiet, unpaid consultant. She didn't mention her own spiritual ability. The Ghostbusters brought a machine that looked like a metal detector. It beeped near the front door. Here's where they died, cried the husband, and his wife concurred. The couple were wrong, but Ate Susan said nothing. Ate Susan silently moved to the kitchen. She touched her hand to the kitchen wall, underneath a huge square mark, where a whiteboard and its emergency contact numbers and to-do lists were once displayed. Ate Susan sensed heat there in the kitchen, an indignant heaviness. The corner of the kitchen was where Nika fell, where investigators found her later, just across the floor from Alexis, who fell near the refrigerator. After a while, the Ghostbusters left. Ate Susan sensed a measure of relief in that part of the kitchen, but the heaviness remained. You're dead, Ate Susan said aloud. Ate Susan said she heard Nika's response. I'm dead? I'm really dead? Yes, I'm very sorry, Nika. I don't know what happened. I woke up and I was here. I can't be dead. I have so much left to do. I have to do so much more. I have to go home. You know, Nika, you can take everything you learn in this life and take it to use in your next life. You can go now and you can return later. With this, Ate Susan sensed a lighter feeling in the air of the kitchen. The presence felt changed by this new information. I can do that. I can really do that. Yes, of course you can do that. The lighter feeling hovered in the kitchen, seeming unsure. Would you like us to have a prayer ritual? It would be focused on you. Ate Susan said she sensed that Nika wanted a ritual. Nika wanted to be addressed directly as someone who still mattered. Nika had specific wants. Ate Susan was used to this from the dead, a list of requests. Ate Susan said Nika wanted 3 things. First, she wanted justice. She did not want the murderers living with no consequences. Secondly, someone very close to Nika in Slovenia was extremely upset that she had planned to join Alexis and had warned her not to go to the Philippines. Nika wanted to tell that person she was sorry. Third, Nika wanted to give back. If she could help with something in our world, she wanted to help. Ate Susan sensed Nika's generous nature, the energy she still had, even in death, to offer the world of the living. Ate Susan reported her findings to Alexis's aunt Nika, Aunt Tina. Tina Tioseco consulted with the rest of the family. Alexis's brothers and sisters still lived in Vancouver. She emailed them, apologetically repeating Susan Kimbo's claims. It seems Nika is communicating that she is having a difficult time moving on to the other realm. I feel we need to help Nika by doing the ritual my friend suggested. Alexis's brothers and sisters didn't quite know what to make of the request. This seems intense, his sister Paolo wrote. In his downtown Vancouver condo, Alexis's brother, Chris Tioseco, sighed. He and his siblings did not believe that their youngest brother, or Nika, would choose to appear to only strangers. Their own father, Leonardo Tioseco, once spoke of the White Lady, a mournful Filipina spirit, an everyday kind of haunting. Leonardo warned Paula and Bettina that he himself would come back at night to tickle their feet after he died. It seemed very much like something their father would want to do, so the sisters waited, joking with each other about it, for his appearance. But their father never appeared. Neither did Alexis. Nika stayed out of their dreams. Chris went to sleep every night, hoping for a visitation. But his youngest brother, and the woman who might have become part of their family, had not yet visited Chris. In the end, the Tioseco siblings decided a prayer ritual for Nika, while strange, couldn't hurt. That is terrible to think Nika doesn't know what is happening to her, Chris wrote sympathetically to Tina Tioseco from Vancouver. He agreed to the ritual. He decided to consider it a going-away event. A despedida party in a way. Thanks for doing this. We owe Nika this much at least. I wish I was there. Susan Kimpo said she would not invite a priest. She could sense that Nika had feminist sensibilities and would not want a conservative male Catholic priest. So women would lead the ritual instead. They agreed to hold it on Thursday, September 2, 2011, the day after the second anniversary of the murders. You must attend, Ate Susan told me. I wasn't sure why my presence was required. I wasn't sure I should agree, but I decided to go. I'll stop there. Thank you, Laurel.
That's exciting. All riveted.
So we're gonna have a conversation.
Thank you, Laura, for reading that chapter. I was very riveted by what was going to happen next, so it's very exciting. I think I want to just ask a little bit about Laurel's life before going to the Philippines. You and Alexis are both Filipino Italian, both
Yeah.
away from the Philippines. You know, where did you grow up here in California? And can you tell us a little bit about your life here before your first return to Manila?
I mean, I can go back even before I was born, which is that my mom and her sisters moved here from 1979 forward. And so, you know, my mom followed her sisters here, and then she met my dad here. And that's how I ended up being Filipino Italian. And when I was 12, she forced me to go back to the Philippines for 2 months. And I did not want to go at all. But then after that, it sort of haunted me. And I decided to go back in 2007 to do a Tagalog language program that Ate Susan in the book was the teacher for. But I grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, and I went to a lot of Filipino parties. And then when I learned Tagalog, I came back and I was able to understand most of the gossip or things that my aunts were trying to say over my head. So I think I had a sense of affinity with Alexis, especially because his father forced him to go to the Philippines when he was 15, and he did not want to go at all. But then he discovered a real sense of connection and belonging there. Even as people considered him to be marginal because he was mixed race, but he called himself fully Filipino. His Tagalog was much better than mine. And his love for cinema and putting forward the talents of Philippine filmmakers was his first love story. And Nika was his second equally powerful love story.
This is in the book, so if you end up reading the book, this part of it will be there, but maybe you can chat about how you discovered Alexis's story. And I see the beginnings of what compelled you to write it, but maybe you could talk to us about what finally got you to pick up a pen and write everything on paper.
Yeah. I went back to the Philippines on a Fulbright, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was supposed to be writing about Philippine fast food, but I was just wandering around, like being taken on trips, like around, acquaintances or friends. And one of my mutual friends was doing outreach at Believe Prison, and she invited me to come along. And that's where she was talking about the Alexis Tioseco Nika Bohinc case, because she was asking the criminals what they thought about the details that they knew about the murder. And so yeah, the prisoners gave their opinions. But then that was the first time I heard about Alexis and Nika. And then I kept meeting their friends. And then I kept reading news articles about them, and they all seemed so incomplete. And yeah, I was just very haunted. And I just asked, a couple of friends, eventually Tioseco, I mentioned in the chapter, what she thought about me trying to write a long project about Alexis and Nika. And Chris Tioseco, the brother that Alexis was closest to, contacted me and said, "We would love to support you in your writing project." And to me, that was so generous because not only was he willing to speak to me and meet with me, but he said, "This is your writing project." He did not feel necessarily a sense of ownership over it. And so I still felt weird about it the whole time. Like I felt like an intruder. But when I showed Chris Tioseco the first draft, he said it helped him to understand all of the relationship and the events better, even as he was living it. And so that was kind of a wonderful affirmation of the Lord. So.
And this book is a re-edition. It was first published in 2018?
2017. Yeah.
2017.
Yeah.
And so this is a new cover. It was a different cover when it was first released. So I wanted to just check in, like, what has happened since this was released? Like anything new, either with the case or like with you?
Right. Yeah, so the first edition came out in 2017, and there was an initial suspect who was caught. And so that's in the first edition. But since then, there was an entire court case where there were new details, new conversations, like new lies, inconsistencies. And so I, even after the first edition was published, I kept in touch with the family attorney who was doing most of the investigations, with their friends, with the family. They just became a kind of like community for me because of their generosity and, because of how much we both cared about, Alexis and Nika's story. And so what I changed were some details about the court case, some details about what happened, what we know about during the final death scene. Yeah, just a little more backstory about me and what I have been doing since the first book came out. This was my thesis at the University of Iowa, which is how I was able to get the support to go back and forth to the Philippines and to complete a full project in time. And so Anvil Publishing, which had published it initially, reached back out to me and said they wanted to take the book to the Frankfurt Book Fair. So the designer worked with me and with the family about a new cover. We went back and forth about edits and clarifying things. And yeah, I sent this edition to Alexis's family, and his mother wrote to me and said that she loved the new cover and that she was really looking forward to reading the book again. So again, the family was very generous. It's kind of a wonderful affirmation. But that was the journey between first edition and the second edition. So also what's different now about book publicity is that there's so much book talk and Instagram like publicity. So like Anvil Publishing sent the book out to a lot of like those sorts of people who publicize books. And so that was also like a really wonderful gesture of support.
I want to chat about Ate Susan, who's in the book. I'm very curious about your relationship with her, and also like growing up in Manila, there's so much conversation about like spirits and spirits just being around us. But I wonder what that was like meeting someone with an open third eye. You grew up in America. Was that something that you believed was true immediately, or did you have any hesitations when you first started hearing about what she was seeing?
I mean, I was very engrossed in what Ate Susan was telling me, and she was such a parental figure to generations of Phil Ams through the program that she ran. But I didn't necessarily immediately reject it. But I was also like, I don't know how to fact check this. I don't have a third eye, So I was kind of like agnostic about it. But I definitely didn't immediately reject it. So Ate Susan was like a really wonderful mentor for so many years, and really became like family to me, and was always like very supportive. And the last time I saw her, she met my wife, and she's right there, and and she said that she was like it was the best Christmas gift for her to see me thriving, healthy, and happy, and with a wonderful relationship. So she died of COVID in 2021 in the Philippines. Yeah. And so
Susan Kimpo.
yeah. Yeah. So it's really interesting. She was the one who taught me the most about how to communicate with the dead and think about spirits and the afterlife. And she's appeared in my dreams a couple of times, like making fun of me and offering encouragement. So yeah, that's Ate Susan.
Cool. I have one more question, then I'll open it up to the audience if anyone has questions. So Laurel and Pax are going home soon. They're going back to the Philippines. And Alexis wrote a letter to Nika, very famous letter, and I'll pick one line up from it. He says, "Does my work in the Philippines mean more than the possibility of a life with you somewhere, anywhere else?" He wrote to Nika. And I read this in one of your interviews. I just wanted to ask you again. For Alexis, it was Philippine cinema that made him go back to the Philippines and stay. What keeps pulling you back to the Philippines?
That's interesting. That was it was in an interview, because my answer now might be very different. But sure, yeah. We really loved living in the region. We loved living in Southeast Asia. But my spouse and I wanted to be in a country, at least one country, that recognized our marriage as legal. And I got a job at the University of Hawaii as a professor. And so we went through the whole immigration process and moved here. And then, that job didn't work out, and my spouse got a better job. So we ended up coming back here to Los Angeles. But we have been talking for years about returning. And, finally this year, especially right after the fires, we just decided to go home this year. And so, I think a lot of it is definitely like for love. My spouse has been dragged along with me for the last two moves, and I think the next move we do, you decide where we go. And so she has decided to go home, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And I also have a huge community of like really wonderful friends who are in the Philippines, and so returning to them is also really wonderful. I'll miss my community here, of course, especially Via and her partner Drea. But it's time. I think it's time.
Great. If anyone has any questions?
Yeah, I was looking for this thing. So it's funny because like Alexis, I'm like, I know that name.
Yep.
Because I'm friends with Joshua, and there's a whole thing with the Manuel Condes,
Yes.
right.
Right.
Genghis Khan.
Mhm.
So this is the first time I've read this, what he wrote.
Mhm.
But we talked about it. So I'm guessing this is what he said. I cry for a country that can't convince a single Filipino American who owns the only known print of Condes Genghis Khan in its original language to return or sell the film back to his mother country. That might be something Bianca would be interested in pursuing.
Yeah.
That film is still, we had it checked, it might be missing one can, but there is a broadcast copy.
Oh, yes.
And I know they did a restoration of a different version, a dubbed version.
Yeah.
But the one that Joshua has is the original Tagalog language.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So
Yes, he's here. He's
Okay.
about to go back to the Philippines. He used to run Travel Cafe.
okay, right.
Yeah, oh no. That's all kinds of brand, but he franchised it to another person.
Yeah.
But that might be something Ruelo, filmmaker friend of ours, did a little short film when we went to get the film from the storage location and all that stuff. So if you're interested,
Send us a short film and then we'll talk to Josh about bringing it.
well, of the condition, basically, eventually what to do with that before it disintegrates,
That's true.
or even maybe the broadcast copy. But
yeah, that's something Alexis
it's one of his
discussion.
wish lists.
Yeah, the wish list. Because film preservation in the Philippines is very difficult.
Yes.
It requires a lot of investment. There is the Sophia organization who's doing a lot of like preservation kind of independently, and
I know maybe SBN did shut down the archive, their archive.
shut down.
Yeah, they
Oh, no.
shut it down.
Oh, let's do that. Well, see, that's another difficulty. It's
Where
hard to
is
stay
kind
on
of those films gonna stay?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's something I also discuss in the book. How Alexis, he himself actually rescued, an original print of a very important film, and so, yeah, he that was part of his activism on behalf of Philippine cinema and heritage and preservation.
Yeah, well, that may be another thing that could be fulfilled from his
Right.
unfinished
That's true.
Right.
wish list.
Yeah.
Was Alexis a filmmaker?
Alexis was a film journalist.
Critic.
Critic.
Yeah, film
Film
journalist. Yeah, and so was Nika.
And his parents, it was the mom that was Filipina or the dad?
The dad was Filipino. Yeah, and the mom is Chilean Italian. And so they met in the Philippines, his parents, and then moved to Canada. But the dad hated life in Canada. And that's why he went back and he brought Chris and Alexis with him.
When I read your book, I was drawn to it for many reasons.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Because I'm also a finished broadcast communication
Ah, yeah.
at UPD1.
Excellent.
Yes, in NASCO, yes.
Yeah.
But this was in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
So many things that is in here,
Yeah.
like people who died and all of that, I can relate to.
Mm, yeah.
When I was in UP, I was also one of the editors for the police.
Wow.
Police.
Oh my gosh.
So many things, I'm drawn to it. And when you said Times Square
Yeah.
in Quezon City,
Yeah.
I know the area because my aunt lived in West Triangle Homes, Times
Oh,
Street.
wow. Yeah, that's right.
So that's the area, right?
Yeah.
That's the
That's
street.
street.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's Nino Aquino Street.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I could relate to it. At the same time, the film critic and all of that. And the beginning, it's like nonfiction, but it's a love story.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's like the how do you call this? The thing that helps me is that I also used to do film critic.
Oh,
One of my thesis in sociology was to watch Filipino films from
Wow.
this period to this period.
wow.
And I think I don't remember who took in my thesis and started looking that and contacted me. I said, "I'll sit by my So that's when I started do. So all of this, I relate to your book.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So it's like I was fascinated, and the reason, like, I almost finished it in one sitting,
Wow.
but I had to do something else. So it's like,
Thank you so much.
yeah, so it's like, oh my gosh, it's like bringing me back to things that I love, you know, like Ben Cervantes was my professor.
Right, right.
I mean, Tony, all of those guys were part of my education.
Yeah.
I mean, he said Fulbright. I almost became a Fulbright scholar, but then funding was cut.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. But
What year was this?
oh, the 70s. Oh, the Fulbright. It was already the. Oh, I entered UP in 71. So you will see on your ID.
Yeah.
When you enter the Philippines, your ID, your student ID starts with the year you came in. So everybody will know when it starts with 71, then you entered 70.
Yeah.
If it's 85, oh, okay, you're still young. So things like that.
Yeah.
But I like how you look into them. It's like how you wrote about the case.
Yeah.
It's like I'm still fascinated until now. What happened? Did they know who killed them?
Yeah.
They found out.
They did. Yeah.
They did. Were they punished?
That's still in progress.
So it's our system that, and this happened in 2017.
This happened in 2009.
Oh, 2009.
2009. And it's taken this long.
And it has taken this long.
And it was only because the family paid for their own investigation.
Yes.
You know, so the society just unfairly
Yes.
just thrust that responsibility onto families, and then if you can't afford
Always.
it, yeah,
That's really what brings us down.
yeah,
And then when you say you were in Bilibid, I have friends in the Bilibid who does feed the lolos, they call the lolos and the lolas
well,
in prison.
yeah,
They do it on twice a month basis.
Mm.
And these are my cousins with their friends. They get donations and things, and they do it twice a month.
yeah,
And I really salute her.
yeah,
And I send money to her too, to just to help out, you know.
yeah, yeah.
But
Wow.
so all of that, it's like I can relate to many of the pages in your book.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad because
Thank you for the book.
Oh, thank you so much. This is so kind of you. Thank you. I'm glad that even though I didn't live in that era, I was able to remind you of it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You captured all of that.
Thank you.
My question has to do with your decision to return
Mm,
to the
yeah.
Philippines. So maybe I should address it to you. But so you refer to, the societal kind of dysfunctions and sad parts in Philippine society at this time. So what has helped you overcome? I mean, what, I guess how did that decision come about to actually enter, I guess, the mouth of the dragon?
I always say that every country has its own buffet of problems. So choose your buffet. And so housing here is very difficult.
Mm.
The mass secret police for kidnapping people, is terrifying.
Here.
Here,
Yeah.
yeah. The climate events are also very
Right now.
scary.
Mhm.
And my spouse wants to be near her family. We have like a brand new nephew, and I think there are many things that are true at once about a country. So I don't think I've overcome my reservations or worries about the Philippines. But I also know that in terms of community, in terms of like creative opportunities, in terms of teaching opportunities, in terms of like having housing that's stable,
Yeah.
that's why we're,
That's the offering.
yeah, that's the offering.
Great chances in the Philippines.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. So
I can understand that.
yeah,
What area are you going back to?
Makati.
In Makati.
Yeah, yeah.
And are you going to teach
Yes.
in UP?
Alas, no. The commute is terrible.
That will be a terrible commute. See it.
Probably in LaSalle and Nepal.
Oh, okay. Vidil.
Yes.
I have a question. I think it's how Bianca. Oh, your relationship. How does that start?
Mhm.
And your interest in filmmaker.
Mhm.
From that perspective, your interest in your collaboration with Laurel
Mhm.
on this project.
That's an interesting question. We met because I'm part of an org called Cinema Sala. Cinema Sala is a nonprofit organization, and we help promote films and any art by Filipino and Filipino Americans here in Los Angeles. It was started by a close friend of mine. Her name's Marie Hamora. And she also is a director from the Philippines and has come here to the US to start directing TV episodes. So she's a very successful Filipina filmmaker if you look for her. And in that org, we had this one seminar, like a talk, where we were asking people about the term Filipinx. We were chatting about what other
Is it
people thought.
legitimate?
Hmm?
Is it legitimate? Call people.
That was a conversation we were having, really. And I think where we all landed was that, at least for me, it's like there's a lot of experiences that like people who feel the term Filipinx refers to them, and like that's a very specific circumstance and a very specific like identity. And I grew up in the Philippines where there was a lot of judgment on like Filipino Americans for like not knowing the language and like being a certain way. And now living here in America, it's like it's a very different experience, and I should not be too judgmental of what I do not know. So that's like what we learned, and Laurel was part of that conversation. And because of that, I discovered World of like Laurel's work. One of her essays was in the New York Times. It's called
Choose the title.
Three Seasons.
Yeah, in the Philippines, like 2 seasons, and it was a modern love poem. So it was about an ex of mine that I met in Manila, and so we had like adventures together. But he behaved like a cad. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a tumultuous love story.
Yeah.
It's like a first love story.
Yeah.
a cad.
A CAD.
Sure.
I'm not a jerk.
About to say jerk.
Yeah, right.
And we wrote a script about that together. So that was one of the the beginnings of like our collaboration as friends. And then Laurel and her wife moved to LA, which made us even closer. And just like I think, especially like seeing someone who like kind of has the same values as me as an artist. There's a lot of like openness to like people's experiences. Being queer is like a big thing also that we share. So that Laurel is like a queer tita to me. The age is not that far away, but it's
Right.
Still honest.
your elder leading the way. There's always that reciprocal relationship. So that's my interest. Though there are a lot of people interested in the book as a film, we also
Yes.
talk about it as like, I don't think it's time. Like I feel personally like I am not sure that this is the right time for this story to be turned into a feature like fiction story. Because I think people have tried. But yeah, there is not yet any success on that side.
I mean, but it's like again, it's an honor to have interest.
So, another question. So do you fall on the side of actually the maid? I saw the little blurb about the maid being the main suspect.
Yeah.
This time.
Yeah.
So you do kind of agree
I mean,
or
the
investigate.
evidence so far, you know, shows that it's something she had done in the past.
Oh,
And you know, that you know, they were all sort of from the same region of they spoke Visaya when they were in the house. So I, you know, again, I hesitate from offering any sure answers because again, all of the suspects have not been like adjudicated, right? So that is the most likely scenario. But I say in the book there's a lot of still unanswered, unresolved questions.
But what is most important is why.
Right.
Why
And
did
that's
she-
still, you know, that's still, again, I go through all the possibilities.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what's frustrating. It's still unresolved.
So this is based off the court case that happened in 2017.
Yeah, I mean,
2009.
This book has like updates. Yeah, the trial was started in 2017.
Oh,
The murder was in 2000.
Right. Yeah. But so there's actually a court trial going.
mhm.
Is
It's over now.
so
Yeah, for that suspect.
So judgment, you're waiting for the judge.
Oh no, the judgment is guilty.
Oh,
The judgment was guilty.
oh.
But-
in May.
Yeah.
And he's in jail.
Reclusion perpetua.
Perpetua. When are you planning to go back?
October.
That's soon.
Yes,
Exactly.
it's like in 5 minutes.
Will you be picking up your writing about fast food ever?
No. Nothing. I wrote
Now, was that Filipino fast food
Yeah.
or just fast food in general?
I have the essays about it here and there that you can see. But otherwise, you know, I've moved on to writing other things.
Yeah, in that sense, we can,
signing.
you can buy it and then we can or
Think what anybody has the
market it.
time.
Hindi, papunta nila rito.
You need to check lang nila.
Pero okay naman yun. Walang kahit hindi mabili.
Do
Yeah.
you have any film that you're working on right now?
Walang legit pa mga friends.
Oh, no. I have a lot of YouTuber. I mean, you're always working.
Yeah, I've been taking a lot of photos actually. That's something that is very special to me. I'm going to do a photo shoot very soon that is meant to supplement this short film that Drea and I are working on together. It's called Royal Blood. It's about two women during the Spanish colonial period, them like hiding their relationship. The short film, but we're going to do a little photo shoot to hopefully then raise money for it.
Another broader question, I think, for panelists here and for anybody. So, for me, over the last 6 months, leading to the midterm elections over there, was simultaneously Trump took office the beginning of the year. So the same 6 month period up to now, I guess it's now 7 months. I've kind of been on the side seeing what's been going on with Trump and his, craziness. But somehow for me, the Philippines has been I've been more emotionally connected with what's going on over there because of the midterm elections and the results of that. So for me, I've been focused on that. And I think for both for both Laurel and Bianca, you mentioned about you're moving over there. So I wanted to see if both of you can discuss that broader context of the Philippines and how you guys locate, yourself within it.
You have an answer since you're going back soon.
I spoke to one of the representatives of Anakbayan, and she said something interesting, which is that in the Philippines, individuals exist in spite of the government and have to make their own way. And so that's just a reality that you live with. There's a lot of like unchecked plunder. And again, I just think the Philippines and the US are kind of like upside down mirrors of each other. I mean, so much of what the Philippines suffered is because of the contracts that the Americans made with the families of the elite, like, after the Filipino American War. So there's always going to be that tortured relationship between the two countries. So I don't like to rank which is more troubled. I just think that they're angled mirrors at each other.
Really.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay.
Well, I talked to a few millennials and Gen Z who started traveling back and forth, to ends. And I noted kind of a real exuberant optimism on their part, developing their own business, ventures, creative pursuits. So I was struck by that kind of optimism about reconnecting, because they were born here, grew up here, but now have established this connection somehow. It's intriguing to me, because I'm certainly rooted here now. I've rooted since my first uncle died in 1983, my mom's brother, and I felt, he's buried here now. I really am gonna be here forever. So that's sort of like my own psychological evolution in terms of being rooted. But anyway, I've noted that very interesting dynamic development. So your story kind of connects with that somehow.
Right.
Thank you. What I see in that, I know some friends who are experiencing exactly that. Like a friend who went back recently because a cousin got married, and then from there, he suddenly felt like I should come home more often. Like they didn't have the courage to go back home before because maybe there was a lot of fear, like around going to a different country, maybe a lot of judgment on the country or themselves, like a lot of things. But I think it's like what you said, a lot more people are going home, so there's more of an openness to like flying back. I think the internet helps a lot also.
Yes, that's what I want about.
Yeah, like conversations about being Filipino and Filipino American, and like everyone's talking about like everything they went through when they were younger. Or like I was part of a food show, like a lifestyle and food show, where we spoke to a lot of Asian Americans and their experience growing up, and a lot of them talked about food and how they were judged for food, and the fact that they were able to just like discuss that so freely, and now feel more confidence in like Asians have the best food.
Yes.
So because of that, I feel like there's less judgment on being Filipino American, more conversations about our fears, insecurities, acceptance. And it's nice to see them go back home. Like it's very like inspiring that like they have the courage to visit family.
Yes.
The courage to like kind of do what Laurel did, like see if there's something they would find. And it's nice that Laurel found something that
Were you sent back? You said you and Alexis were both sent back to the Philippines. You were 12 then?
Yeah.
He was 15. Was it a punishment for graduating?
No, my mom was like, it's time for me to go back.
Yes.
I'm taking my eldest, no matter what. So it was just it was a 2-month
That's
visit.
typical, right? I mean, I've
Yes,
heard that a lot.
that's what my YA novel's about. Me too. I've heard from like a few villains that they were like, oh, we're just going on a 2-week trip, and then all of a sudden we're going to the airport, but you're not. You're staying here. I've heard that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I've heard so many people, mothers who brings their first child to go back, so they will know more about where she came
Right.
Yeah.
as a mom. introducing her country to their first book.
Yeah,
That I have heard.
yeah, that's so that was me.
Yeah. And I think that social media also has opened up the upside of social media.
Yes.
That we are more open and that they know exactly what's in the Philippines. If you're a diver, you would love the Philippines.
Right.
They would visit more often. I mean, those things, so they get to know the country better
Yeah.
and more, and they see the upside of the country rather than all the bad things that they're hearing about.
Right.
So,
Very true.
I think for me, that was how social media or the internet has done,
Mm-hmm.
globally.
Well, we have two other guests here. You want to say something?
I want to put you on the spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I talked to Laurel quite a lot. So
Okay. Can you just share your name first?
Sorry, I'm actually Laurel's spouse, so very enlightening conversation. Okay, since we're moving in October, I decided to come up here. Is there anything that you're looking forward to career-wise, professionally in Manila? You mentioned that there are opportunities there, so tell us a little more about
That's also what you do.
yeah,
Because if you're going to build,
you asked.
my brother-in-law is a professor in the
I'm looking forward to working with students again. I taught at Ateneo in 2013, but I feel like I'm a better teacher now. So I sort of look back on like what I could have done better at Ateneo, and I think like I can do better by students now. I'm looking forward to that opportunity, and just finishing my third book, and seeing like what other writing projects, collaborations that I can do because the creative energy is very intense in Manila. It's kind of wonderful the way people gather in different creative communities. So it's a society that's very much in person. Like you really have to be there and immersed. So I am looking forward to that and seeing what possibilities arise.
What subject will you be teaching?
Creative writing and
Creative
general education, literature, and writing courses. Yeah.
Glad you're teaching.
Do you want to say anything?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm Andre Walter. I'm Bianca's partner. I also grew up in the Philippines. Where my parents wouldn't let me go to UP.
Afraid.
Yeah. Afraid to be too rebellious. I don't have questions. Would you like to migrate back home?
Someday.
It's fun to think about what Laurel said. Like, there's just such a big creative community that I really miss. Like, that's
Me too.
especially being young in college, being surrounded by many different artists in UP, like fine arts, music, writers. Like, all the best minds were really like around us. Like, we were both in Katipunan around the same time, and it was just like such a very fulfilling community. So I think about that. Though I'll say that like I just have a little more freedom here because of the work that I do. I think in the Philippines I'd have to go back and make commercials, and it's like that would trap me in like the world of like your commercials and like like that's what's in my world. Whereas here it's like I feel like I can take photos, do like more personal creative projects, and still be able to like live a pretty good life. So that's like what I think I'll be missing out on. It's like I would have to just focus on making money in a commercial space in the Philippines, I think, if I was to go back right now. But maybe in the future. Like I think it's always my family's there. So
Win the lotto.
yeah. I try to make a lot of money.
Both our families are at home, and like my nieces and nephews are getting older, so I go home more often.
Now.
I just came back.
Oh.
Well, thank you, everyone.
And worse, do you have a square to pay for the book? How do we do that?
Yeah, so I'll close the thing and we're gonna have book sale with Laurel. Please buy our book. We also have snacks in the back, but I'm gonna close the book launch and
Thank you.
thank you. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Wanted to speak thank you very much again for having us. Really, it really means a lot to us. We love the library. And thank you to the Carlos Colón
I love library.
and friends of the Echo Park Library. And it was so enriching to have a conversation with all of you. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.